So I've had this old 286 computer for a couple years now, and I haven't done anything with it. In fact, I don't even know if it works. I've never turned it on, and I've only opened it up like once to remove the clock battery. I just haven't done anything with this, and it's been bugging me. So I think it's finally time I take a look at it and see what exactly we got in here, because I know it's got a 286, it's got a hard drive, and that's about it. I don't know anything else about it. So we're going to take a look at it, and hopefully it's interesting. So here's the machine itself. It does have some yellowing on the front panel. I don't think I'm going to be addressing that today. Now this is probably one of the oldest PC compatible machines that I have. Just don't look at that. Don't look at that. That doesn't exist. Don't look at that. I don't usually mess with hardware this old because I don't have any of it really. The 286 is basically the oldest PC stuff that I have. I don't have an XT, anything like that. 286 is as old as it gets for the hardware that I have. Of course, I have other like 8-bit machines and whatnot, but for the PC, 286 is as old as it gets for me. And I haven't even actually messed with a 286 really, so 386 is actually the oldest for me. So I'm kind of going into sort of foreign territory. I would say I know an okay amount of stuff. I know the general gist of what's going on here, but I'm probably going to get some of it wrong. I'm just going to try my best. We're going to explore it together. We're going to see what's in it, and hopefully it works. So we can see that it's in a tower case, which is a bit unusual for a 286. Most PCs of this time were still flat desktop cases. That's not to say the towers didn't exist, because, well, they obviously did. And of course you had things like the IBM PS2 line, which that came out in like 87, and those had tower machines as well. So the towers were typically the higher end systems. That was a classic, not really true thing, that towers are supposed to be more powerful than desktops. That's why most PCs by like the mid to late 90s started moving towards tower cases. Of course, the actual case has no bearing on the performance, but that's just what people thought because tower machines were just typically the higher spec, higher end versions, usually more for like a workstation kind of purpose. And from what I've already gathered, I would say this is definitely a later 286 system, probably late 80s, maybe 88 or 89. Could even be early 90s. Of course, late 80s, early 90s, this was already well into 386, and even the 486 was coming out at this time. So it was definitely a little past this machine's prime, but this isn't some basic 8 megahertz 286. I know that for sure. All right, so if we take a look at the front here, we can see that there is a door, and we'll take a look at that in a second. There's a spot for a case badge, which doesn't appear to have ever had anything stuck to it. There's no residue or anything, so I guess they just left that blank. Initially, I thought this system might have been built by like a computer shop, or perhaps, it was a custom built thing by the end user. But as we'll see when we take a look at the back, I don't think that's the case. So we can see on the front we have a key lock, and I don't have the key for this. It's one of those barrels that's like slightly smaller than the typical ones, and none of the keys I have actually seem to fit in there, so it's in the unlocked position, and it's one of the ones that's just an electrical switch anyways, so it's not like it's going to prevent us from opening the case. And we got these reset and turbo buttons. Now, these things kind of suck. They're like these weird membrane kind of buttons. They feel kind of squishy and crunchy. They're weird. Like, listen to this. These just feel awful. I hate touching these. Do have some ventilation grills. And down here we have a blanked out spot. Now, I would assume that this is probably for a keyboard pass-through. The case I have my 386 in actually has a AT keyboard port in the front, basically in this almost exact same position. And it just has a cable that kind of runs out the back and will plug into the motherboard. So if you wanted to have your keyboard hooked into the front instead of the back, I guess if you were unplugging it a lot, that would be convenient. But this doesn't seem to have been populated with that. At least I assume that that's what that's for. I don't know what else you would put in a hole that size. I don't know, maybe a MIDI port or something, but yeah, an AT keyboard port makes the most sense, just that this wasn't ever populated. Here's the back, pretty standard AT layout. Just a generic power supply. We seem to have a 25-pin serial port. It's missing one of the screws. We can see somebody's written here in Sharpie, color Macher. It says M-A-C-H, I assume E-R. I think it's supposed to be Matcher, but they put Macher, and for some reason they underlined like the A and the C. Why? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me, but there must have been for some sort of peripheral that plugged in there. And if we take a look at the sticker that's down here, we can see it says ColorGen Incorporated. And I assume that's Billerica. I don't know how else you would say that. Billerica. I thought it might have been like Billericea, but there's no I after the C, so I assume it's Billerica, Massachusetts. And judging by the company name, I would assume that this is probably meant more for a specific task. Like this machine was sold as part of some sort of hardware bundle, which again would make sense for this if they sold it with some sort of like peripheral that would plug into the serial port, some sort of color matcher or whatnot. That would make a lot of sense. So that's probably why this company did this. Now, whether or not ColorGen actually built the machines themselves or not, who knows? They probably sold all of this as a package with the peripheral you would need and the software and the hardware all together. Now, judging by the color matcher thing, this would almost make me think that it's like a paint swatch matcher or something. Or perhaps it's just for, like, I guess comparing colors or something. Perhaps for fabrics or something. I guess it probably was just some sort of like scanner thing that could, I guess, detect what color it was. So if anyone has any ideas on what that might be for, let me know. I'd be interested to hear. So we can see on the back that the I/O is pretty basic. Obviously we had the serial port up there, but we appear to have a parallel port and I think a game port. And then we have a VGA output. So this machine is equipped with VGA, which makes sense for a later 286. It would be weird to stick with EGA this late because you might as well just go with VGA. And one other thing, that serial number seems awfully high. Now I kind of feel like this might not be a sequential serial number. They didn't actually make 85,000 of these things, but maybe they did. But it could just be like the 8 is like denoting something else, and this is only the 4,000th, 490th of this machine. All right, I've rambled about the outside of this thing long enough. Let's actually get inside this thing and see what we got. So here's the power supply, the Principles Group Corp. Never heard of it. Judging by the model number, I would assume this is a 200 watt power supply. Looks like we got 20 amps on the 5 volt rail, 7.3 amps on 12 volt. So yeah, that sounds about right for a 200 watt power supply. We're definitely gonna check the voltages on this and hook it up disconnected from the machine just to make sure that this is working correctly, because you never know with these old AT power supplies. Sometimes they're pretty sketchy. All right, so I don't have the best way to get like a good angle in the machine. This is kind of the best angle I can get on the tripod, so we're probably gonna have to go shaky cam handheld mode for a lot of this, but we'll try our best. So here's the inside, and we can see that I was correct about the early 90s part, apparently. December 3rd, 1990 was at least when the case was manufactured. So as we can see, there's quite a few cables in here. Where does that go? Oh, okay, I see where. All right, well, we'll get to the hard drive in a second. We need to find that CPU, because we need to know how fast this 286 is. All right, well, that's not the CPU. That's an AMD 8287, or ADC287. I don't know what the difference is. And the Dash 10 would, to me, indicate that that's a 10 megahertz chip. And I think the CPU is right over there, but we got to move some cables for that. An AMD 286, 12 megahertz.
it appears to be. It says /S. I don't know what that necessarily indicates. I assume it's not sarcasm. N80L286, I don't know if that's a different revision. I don't know if that's like a low power revision of the chip, or if that's just like just a random AMD model number that they used at the time. And we can actually see silkscreened on the board there. You can kind of see it. 8286 is there. So that's really cool. We got an AMD 286 and an AMD 287. So that's really cool. I was trying to find the crystal oscillator on here, and it's, you can't see it. It's right under there. I can't even read it. So while the chip itself is 12 megahertz, the crystal oscillator might be running slower, so we won't know until I can actually get a good look at that. But I think to get a good look at the motherboard, I should really take some of these cables out. But first, let's take a look at this drive up here. Now this is just a floppy drive, and of course it's being covered by the drive cage, so I can't really see it that well. Appears to be a Matsushita floppy drive, so a Panasonic. I would assume it's probably 1.44 megabytes. I can't imagine a machine this late still using only a 720K drive, but who knows, it could be. We won't know until we use it, unless I looked up the model number, but that kind of takes the whole suspense out of it. And this hard drive, you've probably already noticed, that's a 5.25-inch hard drive. It is half height. And this cable actually is supposed to plug into it. This is unplugged for some reason. So yeah, this is an MFM hard drive, or it could be RLL, because they use like the same connectors. I have no idea what the difference between MFM and RLL is. I think RLL is technically supposed to be better, but I can see that there's a sticker here that appears to have the drive geometry on it. See if we can take a look at that. All right. I'm not seeing a brand name on the drive yet. The sticker is quite faded. I think that's listing out the bad sectors that were on the drive when it was manufactured. Hopefully this drive had its heads parked, because a lot of these MFM drives don't have auto parking. You can see there's a breather hole there. Wait, I can see a sticker way in there. I can't really read it. I can't get the camera in there. I want to say it's a Seagate drive. It kind of looks like a Seagate drive. I think I can just take this front panel off and I can get to it. Interesting. It's using metal tabs. The front panel is using metal tabs that are just like screwed to the front panel. I've never seen that before. It's always just plastic clips. They must have really cared. You know what I just realized? We forgot to take a look at the door. How'd I forget that? That's like the coolest part. Of course, we got our 3.5-inch drive there. Don't know why they chose to put it in a 5.25-inch bracket when there's clearly 3.5-inch spots already down there. We have a piece of paper that says type CD color gen and then master menu. So it must be for whatever software was supposed to be controlling this thing. I guess we'll take a look at that once we turn it on. Hopefully the hard drive works. And of course we got our power switch, and it's one of these lovely, just IBM style power switches. That is, like, it doesn't get much better than that. Those are legitimately the best power switches that have ever been created. Okay. Well, that is, it's a lot dustier than I thought it would be. We found our PC speaker, and this thing is really, these cables are really stuck in here. I don't want to pull them too hard. Just turn this around here. Oh, we can actually see the whole power switch mechanism. I thought it would be affixed to the front panel. This is a Seagate ST225. I think this was a pretty common MFM 5.25-inch hard drive back in the day. I think this is a 20 megabyte. Actually, it might be 25 based on the model number. I don't forget, it's in like the 20 to 30 megabyte range. So hopefully this thing works. I want to say that these early Seagate drives tend to be pretty reliable, at least compared to their later hard drives. So yeah, hopefully this thing works. I'm really excited to hear this thing spin up. Hopefully the spindle motor's not seized. And it's kind of interesting, there is actually like an 80mm
fan mount. You typically don't see fan mounts on this old of PCs. It's not populated, but yeah, typically they just use the power supply fan for cooling, which really it's all you needed for the most part, but I guess if maybe you had like a couple hard drives or something in this machine, you'd want to have the extra cooling, so that's nice. All right, let's pop these cards out so we can actually take a good look at them, and so we can hopefully get a good look at the motherboard. All right, so first up we have an 8-bit ISA card. This appears to just be a basic controller card. It's got it's got these 2 serial headers. Apparently it has a spot for an option ROM. Actually, that's quite big to be a ROM chip. Maybe it's just some other chip or something. And of course, this is what I had our game port and our parallel port on it. So yeah, that's pretty neat. Got a main WinBond controller. It's got some Gold Star and Samsung chips on it. I love looking at these old cards with how visibly like bright and easy to follow the traces are. That's just really nice. These things just look really cool. All right, so since this is just a serial header, I can just unplug this and I'll know where it goes. So off to the side that goes. All right, next up we have the hard drive controller, which also appears to be the floppy controller. Oh geez. Okay, so I think this is the hard drive activity LED. This is the smaller MFM connector, the larger MFM connector, and then this is the floppy connector. So we can see this is actually made by Western Digital from 1988. It says copyright 87. Don't know if there's anything special about this or whatnot. Probably isn't. It's probably just a pretty generic standard MFM card. You can see it's actually labeled as Winchester, which is what the old kind of industry name for hard drives used to be. I think there was a company called Winchester that made hard drives or something, or it was something else. I forget. There's some reason why it's called Winchester. And look, there's even this Hyundai chip. That's pretty cool. No ports on the back because, well, you don't really need them on this. Wow, we can really get a good look at the motherboard now that this stuff is getting out of the way. Last up, if I don't drop the screws in the machine, is the video card. Oh wow, that's really tight. Oh wow, that was really tight in there. So we have a Trident card. This is a TVGA 9000i-3. I think these are like okay ISA VGA cards. They're passable. They're not great, but they're not like completely awful either. This does appear to be pretty basic. This is actually quite new. So I think this machine might have actually been upgraded because, or maybe it got replaced. The old card died or something. See here, it says it actually has a 1995 copyright date on the BIOS ROM here. So yeah, this thing's actually a lot newer than I thought, and it even says copyright 1994 on the Trident chip. The Trident chip was actually made second week of 96. Wow. Yeah, this thing was really late then for this machine. And we got a bunch of TI RAM here. Appears to have been made in Italy. That's pretty neat. Don't know how much RAM this is. It's probably just like 256K or maybe 512K. But yeah, I doubt this thing would have like a megabyte in it. Oh, we got some unfortunate scratching up here. At least that's just on the ground plane. It's not on any traces or anything. But yeah, really weird that they would have such a late card in this machine. And now we can get ourselves a good look at this board. So we have 5 16-bit ISA slots and 2 8-bit. So we appear to have here a Chipson Technologies chipset. Appears to have a 1990 date code, so that makes sense. And I think that's the only chip. And yeah, that appears to be a single chip chipset. I know on the 386 and 486 motherboards, there's usually like 2 big chips like this, but this thing must be pretty integrated down to just this one chip. Obviously, we got some of these other chips that are doing probably supplemental duty for some other things. Perhaps just like bus logic or something like that.
Here we got AMI BIOS, 286 BIOS, and a keyboard BIOS. Here are some of the other chips. If anyone knows what these are specifically for and they want to comment that would be much appreciated. I'm actually seeing this motherboard actually has 3 different clock oscillators on it. It's got a small one there. We got the bigger main one down behind here, and there's also a 3rd one up here by the keyboard. You can see right there. Okay, I just shined my flashlight on the crystal oscillator that's right there, and it's a 24 megahertz crystal, so the crystal is always like double the clock speed of what the actual like CPU and system is running at. So it is indeed running at 12 megahertz, which means that this is a 10 megahertz 287, which means wouldn't this be getting overclocked? I don't know, but that's how it is, so it must work. So maybe the Dash 10 isn't actually the clock speed. If anyone wants to fill in on that, I'd love to know, because I know that these 287s, most of these math coprocessors, they tend, I think, to run at half the clock speed of the CPU. I might be wrong on that. It might just be for like the 8086 and whatnot, but I think that's the same on the 286 as well. Now, if you're not familiar with 286 systems, you're probably wondering where the heck the RAM is. Well, I think this is the RAM, and we got some weird stuff going on here. So now, most 286, along with XT class systems, the RAM is usually socketed in these little sockets on the board. I expected that. We also have these weird, got these weird sockets here. It says for 60 nanosecond DRAM, and this almost looks like it'd be for 30-pin SIMs, but obviously SIMs can't plug into that. I don't know what the heck this is for. Maybe you can just put 4 of these chips next to each other or something? That's really weird. There's no way they made a chip that was that long. Maybe there's some sort of weird card that somehow plugs into this. Now, don't ask me how much RAM that is, because I have 0 clue. And judging by the Dash 80, I assume that that's 80 nanoseconds, so that's not that fast. Maybe that is fast for a 286. It's not very fast for a 386. Hopefully the motherboard has 640K on it, because I don't even know how I'd begin to upgrade this thing. Judging by the fact that there's 8 of these big chips, but there's 4 of these little chips, I don't know what that would be exactly. It could be one bank of 256, another bank of 256, and then this is a bank of 128 or something. I guess we'll find out when we turn the system on, but yeah, I don't really know. Also, I forgot to point it out earlier, but there's this sticker with a serial number on it. I have no idea what that logo is, so if anyone would fill me in on that, I'd love to know. I haven't really seen a model number anywhere on the motherboard that I can see. Alright, so I figured I would just throw this in real quick here. I was able to find what model the motherboard was. It's a BioStar MB1212C, and this actually says so in the BIOS. That's how I found it out, and we'll see that later once I power it up. But yeah, this is the SIP version, and once I heard that, it all started clicking. See, 30-pin SIP? I'd forgotten that this is what SIP RAM was. It's basically 30-pin SIMs, but they have these awful little pins on it. That just looks like the most nerve-wracking thing in the world to try to plug in to these slots. No, I don't want to have to deal with that. Not to mention the SIP RAM, as you can see, is it's not that cheap. You can definitely find SIM RAM for much cheaper than this. So I don't really know what I would do for a RAM upgrade, but I have some ideas. Considering there is a SIM version of this motherboard, some of you might be getting the idea that I already have. And we can see here that this is the chipset. So it's Chips and Technologies single chip chipset. So that's kind of neat. But before we go any further and test the power supply, let's get some of this dust out of here, because there's a quite large dust bunny. All right, so I think now we need to test out this power supply. and make sure that all the voltages and everything are still correct on here. Assuming it doesn't just blow up as soon as I plug it in. I've never seen a floppy connector like this. It's missing the ridge. It's missing the ridge to prevent you from plugging it in wrong. What? I've never seen that before. All right, I'm gonna turn on power to the power supply. Okay, that's good. Now, a moment of truth. I'm gonna flick the switch. Okay, so the fan I think is spinning. Well, it didn't blow up. Not exactly what I would say a smooth bearing fan, but oh well. All right, so let's test the power. Got, first up, 5 volts, or plus 5. Let's see what that does. Oh no. Yeah, I don't think it was too happy. Hold on, let's try that again. It's only doing 2. Yeah, that power supply is not working. The fan is actually not even spinning until the power starts to kind of die out of the power supply. As we saw, I was only getting like 2.5 volts or something. It kind of sounds like there's a short or something in there. Like there's something wrong with this thing. Let's try it one more time. This time just plugged right into the Molex. Nope. Nope. I turned it on, it went up to like 3 volts. Yeah, that is not good power supply behavior. I don't know what's happening with that. But yeah, we're not going to be trusting that power supply. Good thing I checked. All right, so just out of curiosity, I decided to open up the power supply, and honestly, nothing really looks that apparently wrong, other than it being extremely dusty. I mean, it could be that something is getting shorted out from the dust. That can happen. But yeah, I don't know. I don't trust it. I think what might be happening is that there's some sort of short on the low voltage side. That's why the voltage is kind of low. Granted, I only tested the 5 volt rail, but I mean, the 5 volt rail was bad. So I mean, like the power supply is effectively bad. You can't just have one of the rails not working correctly. So yeah, I'm not gonna trust this thing at all. I've thought about it. I'm just not trusting it. Now I do have a couple other AT power supplies I could use. I don't know if any of them work. They're all about the same vintage of that, kind of like 1990. Frankly, I don't care to find out. So we're just gonna go with something newer. This is a Delta power supply, and yes, this has some damage to it. She's a little tough to mount, but it works. So you can see this is about a 300 watt combined power supply. The other one was 200, and honestly, if we compare the voltages, they actually have the same 5 volt rating, so that's nice. And the Delta power supply has a stronger 12 volt rail, so this is really better in every way. We got like 4 Molex and 1 floppy, and that's really all you need. Now, of course, there is one problem. How do you convert this to this? Obviously, these are different. So we're just going to be using a ATX to AT converter. This is one I've had for quite a while, and there used to be a guy on eBay who sold these that had this modification done to them. This adds -5 volt support to the power supply. Now, I think really early ATX power supplies did still have -5 volts. However, they kind of did away with that at some point. -5 volt just really wasn't being used anymore. So it just kind of got phased out of the ATX standard. Like the pin, like I think the pins for it do still exist. They're just usually not occupied, or, you know, they don't do anything really. And what this eBay seller did was basically add converter or whatever. I don't actually know
exactly what this does. I don't know if it's a regulator or what. I don't know enough about power supply stuff to make a firm guess on that, but I don't think he sells these anymore. I've tried looking for them. They don't seem to be available. It's a little unfortunate, but I got a couple of these at least when he was still selling them. Now, negative 5 volts isn't required. The PCs will generally work fine. It's just certain peripherals, like some sound cards, and I think some other stuff can have issues if you don't have negative 5 volts. Now, there is actually a new project that I really want to check out. I think it's called the Pico RC. It's basically an adapter for a Pico PSU that actually plugs into like an ISA card. And because the ISA bus actually has like all the voltage rails you need, you can actually power the PC through the ISA slot. It's really neat. I definitely want to check it out at some point. And if you've never seen one of these adapters before, you just have these connectors here that you plug into your power switch, like so. And really all this is doing is, if you've ever done the paperclip trick to short the green and the black wires together on an ATX power supply, that's all this is doing, is so you can turn the ATX power supply on and off. That's all this does. Because normally this actually has like AC voltage and stuff going through it on the AT power supply. And so now the switch is just, well, it's a lot simpler, but hey, it gets the job done. Makes the entire thing pretty much seamless. And yeah, I still like these adapters a lot. If you can find these, or maybe you can mod your own, that may be more useful than the Pico RC, depending on your application. All right, so let's get this mounted in here. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is, it's a little weird. For a 286 system, it doesn't have a 5¼ inch drive. Only 3½ inch, which, depending on the application this machine was used for, would make sense, but still it's weird. Most 286s usually have a 5¼ inch drive. Just thought that was worth pointing out. I do have a 5¼ inch drive I could throw in here if I really wanted to, but I don't really feel like it at the moment. That'd be for like a future video or something. I think we actually have to come up from the bottom here. And because of the dent, we can only put in 3 screws, but that's not a big deal to me. I mean, really, you only need like 1 really good one. Maybe 2 if I'm feeling generous. You know what? I'm feeling extra charitable tonight. It's gonna get 3. It would get 3 if it wasn't gonna cross-thread. You know what? No. No. You don't get any charity tonight. You deal with your 2. I just gotta plug her in. Black to black, back to back. Something, something, your computer's dead. Do the hard drive and then 1 floppy and we're good. Wow, somehow it looks worse than it did before. I'm not gonna screw the power switch back in yet, because just want to test to make sure this thing actually works. It should. I don't know why it wouldn't. This power supply and the adapters always worked for me. Famous last words. All right, let's get our cards back in. I forget what order they went in. Actually, I think it was the VGA card was the lowest. All right, next up is the floppy hard drive controller. So this is the floppy cable. So that's pin 1 there. It'll go in. Okay, floppy's in. Bigger MFM cable. Do these MFM cables have a specific name? Like, what's the big one and what's the little one called? Actually, I never even noticed. The big one is the same 34-pin thing as, like, the floppy, almost. Is MFM based off of, like, the Shugart floppy standard? It can't be, right? There's no way. There's no way they would do that. I think it was plugged into drive 0. That would make sense. Also, drive 1 has more dust on the connector. And this one actually goes like this. For pin 1. Oh, the LED for the hard drive. I forget which way this went. We're gonna assume it goes that way. The LED doesn't really matter if it's plugged in wrong. It just, you know, won't light up. I'll just have to switch it around. Let's run this mess under here. Now, hopefully we can actually get this into some sort of bootable system, because the Seagate ST225 and a lot of MFM drives, like I mentioned earlier, doesn't have auto parking. Maybe the Seagate drive does, I don't know. But I know a lot of MFM drives don't have auto head parking.
And as soon as we turn it on, it's probably going to pull the heads out of the park position, which means I'm going to need to be able to get into DOS so I can run the park command to park the disk so I can move the system again without damaging the hard drive. How is this plugging in? Come on. Ah, geez, there we go. Controller card. Interesting that they put it in one of the 16-bit slots and not one of the 8-bit slots, but I guess maybe they did that for convenience sake for the serial. Actually, yeah, that's probably why they did it. It would have been a bit of a tighter squeeze. I don't think I'm missing anything. I think this thing's ready to try out. All right, here's the setup. We got the bare minimum keyboard and random HP monitor that I have. Make sure it's on VGA input. It's just gonna auto scan, of course it is. Oh, guess the power switch is on. Oh, get out of the way, HP monitor. Get out of the way. Oh, dude, that drive sounds amazing. Whoa. All right. That just worked. Yeah, battery state low, because there is no battery. Gonna have to hook up to an external one. CMOS and XCMOS. What's XCMOS? The heck is that? SCAT? SCAT chipset setup program. Wait, we can actually set up the multipliers in the BIOS? Actually, yeah, I didn't even notice that. There was a severe lack of jumpers on the motherboard. Wow, this thing has everything built into the BIOS? Dang, that's pretty fancy for a 286. Normally you set all that on the motherboard. Run frequency? Wow. Right CMOS for off. It's writing something, I don't know. I meant to check out the DMA. Apparently it's got 512K of VRAM, so that's nice. Oh, MB1212C, version 1.1, I'll have to remember that. And it has 640K of RAM, dude. Oh, that's so good. I'm so glad it has that. I'm gonna just run the regular CMOS, please. Wow, this looks exactly like my 386. Yeah, all of this is wrong. 1.44 megabyte, I assume. Hard disk type. What the heck is an ST225? Okay, 615 cylinders, 4 heads is correct. Right pre-compensation or whatever that is, 300, that's correct. 17 sectors per track. Okay, so weird that documentation says it's 21, but this is only 20, but okay. BIOS Shadow ROM disabled. Keyboard not installed. What? I'll just set that to installed, I guess. Scratch RAM option. Maybe that's the wait states? Be weird that there's no 0 options. That's probably not it. Relcoate? The heck is that? Relcoate? Is it like a messed up spelling of reallocate? Relocate. Enabled, 3D 4K relocated, shadow not possible. 3D 4K not relocated, shadow possible. Leave it disabled for now. I would assume this has DOS on it. I don't know what the heck else this thing would have. I'm gonna turn off this light. There, now you can see it a little bit better. Disk boot failure. Oh no. I heard it. The drive seeked though, and I saw the light come on. So is this thing wiped? That's a good question. I have a DOS 622 boot floppy, and of course it's on a cool disk. So let's go ahead and Hopefully this drive doesn't just destroy this disk instantly. Alright. Floppy light is on. Disk boot failure. Oh. Well, that's not stellar. Is the spindle even spinning on the drive? I wonder if this is a belt drive and the belt's broken. Definitely sounds like it's spinning to me. I'm not hearing any head activity though, that's the thing. It's hard to tell with how loud this drive is. I'm gonna look up this model number, because it might not be a might not be a high density drive. That could be the issue. So I found here the service manual for it, if the camera would focus, which it probably won't. There, hopefully you can see it. You can see on the type here, it says JU253, which is one of the numbers that's on here. You can see data diskette 2DD, which would be double density. And if we look over here, we can see 2DD 2HD on these JU38X and 39X. So this is actually a double density drive, and that really sucks because I don't have any DOS diskettes readily available. And in fact, I only have like maybe 3 or 4 double density disks in general. So I might have to do one of the tape trick things and try to write a 720K MS-DOS floppy. Does DOS 6 even come on 720K disks? I might have to use DOS 5, jeez. It's late, I didn't want to have to deal with this right now. But now the drive's unparked, so I'm just gonna hope and pray that there's not an earthquake. And hope for the best. Alright, so I went ahead and created some 720K floppy disks. So these have MS-DOS 5 on them. We should just need the first disk to figure out what the heck's going on with the hard drive. There doesn't seem to be a 720K version of DOS 622. I checked, and I think there's only like a French version or something, which is not very useful to me. I mean, DOS 5, I mean, that's good enough for a 286. Well, the drive is doing more than it did last time. Okay, it's definitely reading something off the disk, so that's good. Hey, there we go. All right. Let's exit. All right, well, that's a relief. Let's see. Oh. Oh. So why didn't the drive boot? Why no boot? What? Doesn't make any sense. Let's auto adjust this. So I mean it clearly works, it just doesn't boot for some reason. Maybe I have a setting or something wrong, or maybe this thing just doesn't have a boot partition, although I mean it has command.com, so like surely it must. It appears like this stuff was probably last modified around 92 or 93. Can I just run that command.com? Oh. Oh, well, that's not good. Maybe that's why. Can I edit auto exec? No, it doesn't have edit command right there. Okay, type. Okay, I can at least do that. Type. Okay. So maybe command.com is just corrupted, or maybe there's a bad sector there on the drive, which means I might have to, I think, low-level format it, so that way the
bad sector or something is flagged. I think I'm gonna have to scan this disk with some sort of program to figure out what's going on with it. Because the fact that it said bad sector trying to read command.com, that would definitely explain why it wasn't booting. Sector not found. Like, that's never a good sign. Let's see what this color gen thing is. So we got a bunch of different things here. NC. I almost wonder if that's Norton Commander. It is. Ooh. Data error reading drive C. Oh, that's not good. Yeah, the head is definitely moving back and forth. At least it sounds like it is, but yeah, I don't know. I wanted to find out what version of MS-DOS this is. Oh yeah, wow. So either I have a setting, I think, set wrong in the BIOS, or there's something wrong with the drive. It could be that the settings are wrong and that this isn't actually a Type 2 hard drive. That could be. Ship disk. Oh, this actually has the park command on it, I think. Huh, okay. I actually went out of my way to put a HD park on this because I forgot DOS doesn't actually come with a park command. An HD park is like just a program that's supposed to park the heads, but it says ship disk on it, which is supposed to do the same thing, and that seems to have done that. So let me go into the BIOS again and see if I have a setting wrong or something. Oh, what? What? No. So there was a lot of hard drive activity, and then it's just that. IO system version 1.0. What? What is that? I have no idea what that is. Well, it's not locked up. The numlock is still working, but it's not doing anything. I mean, that's more than it did before. Yeah, see, there's a lot of hard drive activity, and then it stops, and then we just get that IO system version 1.0. I'm gonna stick the floppy disk back in. I'm gonna try booting off of that. Maybe the drive just needs to, like, warm up or something? I mean, I guess maybe it's been sitting so long that it just kind of needs to get broken back in, but I don't know. It's still kind of suspicious. Hey, there we go. So I just ran that master menu batch file thing that it said on the it said here on the front paper, actually, and it actually loaded into something. Smilland Paint Co. Storyboard, date and time setup, lock hard drive, so there is actually a shortcut, I guess, for that. Store and retrieve backup files. Copyright 1991 Color Gen. Number 1, I guess? Number 2, storyboard. And sector not found. Abort. Date and time setup? Okay, that just runs the time and date command for DOS. 5? Okay. Oh, okay. The Color Gen program or whatever, the Smilland Paint Co. thing, I don't know what that is. But I'm probably right about it being like a paint matching kind of thing. But it does not seem to actually work. Again, we're just getting a lot of bad sectors and whatnot. Honestly, the drive may be savable, but who knows about the data? Okay, well, Norton... some of the Norton stuff is working. I've never actually used Norton Commander, really, so... I was having a bit of a think about this, and then I remembered something. Most of these MFM hard drives do not use voice coils to move the heads. They use these stepper motors, and this one's actually kind of unique because it's actually on the bottom. Normally they're on the side, but this one's on the bottom, probably because it's a half-height drive. I would assume that's probably why they did that. But the thing with these is that because it's a mechanical motor that has bearings in it, those bearings need lubrication. And of course, over time, that can kind of get gummed up and dried up. A lot of times, drives won't work because the heads aren't properly moving. Now, we know that the heads can move. However, I'm thinking that maybe it's gummed up just enough where the head can't quite move far enough or accurately enough. And that's why it can only read like probably the first, couple tracks or something on the disc. So I'm thinking maybe we can add a little bit of oil and help fix this. Now, you can use this for bearings and small electric motors. There probably is some sort of better, more bearing-specific oil. So I think if we just put a little tiny drop in, probably just like 1 drop or something. I'll go ahead and do 2 because I didn't quite get the entire thing. Okay, that's probably enough. Usually you don't need very much of this stuff. And that should hopefully work its way down into the spindle, down into the bearings, and that'll kind of hopefully get it to unstick itself. It's not really foolproof. Frankly, I'm just at the point of just kind of trying whatever to see if I can get this thing to work. And I guess absolute last case scenario is going to be doing a low-level format and examining, doing like a surface scan or whatever to try and figure out what the heck is going on with this thing. I know there's like the breather holes on the other side, but you're not supposed to block those, but I'm sure this will be fine. I think that's just more for like long-term use. Like they don't want you to like put tape or something, like a sticker over it or something. There we go. This totally won't end in disaster. The oil has made its way onto the label quite a bit, but that's fine. I want to see if I can see that spindle moving. Okay. I don't know if that moved more or less than it did before. I want to say it might have moved a little bit more. Nope, that is not getting us any further. Well, that sucks. Let's try booting off the floppy. The oil might also just not have made its way down there, or that might not have helped at all. Who knows? I mean, it can't hurt. The drive is... I mean, it's half functional at the moment. It shows some life, so I don't want to just go willy-nilly opening it up or anything, or low-level formatting it, because again, I really want to get that software off of here, because I don't think there's any archives of it, and I don't have one of those MFM, like, cards that can just, like, scan all the data off of it, which even then, I don't think... The drive's only half functional. I don't think that would help it that much. That's different. Wait, hold on, that's different. It didn't do that before. It would say sector error. Hold on. Let's run the master menu thing. Nope. Never mind. I'm gonna put a little bit more oil in it. I'm just gonna keep pressing the retry, see if that maybe helps the head stepper just work a little bit better. But you can see that the spindle is clearly moving. So sometimes it does a data error. Other times it does a sector error. Or sector not found. I don't know if that actually means anything important, but Maybe it does. Okay, so what I have here is a program called SpeedStore. If you've ever watched Adrian's Digital Basement work on these MFM drives, you've seen him use this program a lot. And this was used a lot back in the day for mainly working on these MFM drives. So I have this loaded up on a floppy, and I think there's some sort of weird VGA incompatibility or something, because it's not supposed to do this. So we go to diagnostics, here we go. So we do controller, it says it passed. We do the seek test. This also will pass fine, which is very good. Which means that there's not actually a problem with the stepper motor. Adding the oil probably didn't do anything. Didn't hurt anything either, but it, you know, it didn't really need it. However, if we do the read test, we'll just leave this at default. You can see here, again, there's some weird video issue going on. I don't know if that's an issue with the card, or if that's just this program having some weird incompatibility with the Trident card. But we can see here that this is the defect table, and these are all the bad cylinders that it's having issues with. It appears most of these issues are on head 3, which that's not good. There's a lot of them, as you can see, and this just keeps filling up, and they do appear to all be pretty much on head 3. I haven't actually let this run the whole way. Actually, I left it on 0, so I think it's gonna run infinitely. But yeah, it kind of seems like there might be an issue with head 3. And I don't know if there's much I can really do about that. Could be head 3 is like mechanically screwed up, like there's some sort of, like it's misaligned somehow. It could be electrically screwed up. It could have had a head crash or something. Like, it's hard to actually say for sure. Alright, I've just been leaving this run, and yeah, everything is head 3. So, I don't even know if the low-level format would even help at this point. Yeah, considering this thing has head issues, it's probably not very likely I'm going to get data off of this thing. I'm not going to format it right away. I'm going to see if you guys have any suggestions on things I can do. Alright, I think I'm just going to give up on this hard drive for now. Again, I've never worked on this kind of... I've never worked on an MFM drive before. I've never had to work on any hard drive. So I don't really know where to go from here. Usually once you have to start cracking open any drive, is usually a pretty good chance it's never going to work. These MFM drives are at least a little bit more resilient to being opened, but still, I don't know. That bad head, it seeming to only be on head 3, that's concerning. Because I think if it was on multiple heads, that would kind of indicate that, okay, it's probably just, it can't read the cylinders and the tracks and everything correctly anymore, because just the magnetic media is kind of lost the data over time, and that just does not seem to be the case necessarily. Could try a low-level format. It might produce results that could maybe get the drive working again. I don't know, but I think I'm going to deal with this at some later time and just put this aside for the time being. I think that's going to do it for this video. There's not a lot I can really do with the machine right now. I mean, I could run stuff off the 720K drive. You know, there's some DOS programs I could throw on here. I mean, we know the machine works, at least mostly seems to work. You know, I just intended for this to be a simple, just let's see if the machine works and let's see what's in this kind of video. I didn't really want to go and start swapping out, you know, for like a high density drive, get a different kind of hard drive and stuff in here and stuff like that. That wasn't really in the scope of this video. I'll pick this up in some later video. There's a at least one other video I want to do before I get back to this. Actually, there might be a couple videos. It might be a little bit till you see this again, but at least we know most of the machine works. I thought, this was going to be, oh, this is going to be a simple video. We're going to get the hard drive working. We'll get to see, all the cool software and whatnot. But no, it never happens. It doesn't work that way. You never get to have just things work. No, that doesn't happen. So yeah, I know this video is really anticlimactic, but yeah, sometimes just things don't go the way you want, and well, this is where we're at. I mean, hey, at least the machine works. We're just down a hard drive and a power supply, but it's not the worst track record yet. But hey, it could be worse. The system could have had like 100 shorted out tantalum capacitors or something. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope it wasn't too boring. Hope you found it interesting. Watch some other videos, I guess. Go watch Adrian's Digital Basement if you want to see him actually maybe get a hard drive working. I've watched a lot of his MFM hard drive videos in the past couple days as I was just working on this, and I think most of them just didn't work either. So yeah, these things are not the most reliable anymore, so at least it's not just me. Yeah, so I'll see you guys in the next video.